I want to thank everybody that's logged in right now. Thanks for joining us today. I think today's topic should be a pretty interesting one for everyone. We're going to be talking about ransomware and how to fight it with anti-data exfiltration technology. We've got our friends over at BlackFog with us today. Specifically, we've got Doug Luban, who is a recognized expert in insider threat management and risk mitigation. He brings over 16 years of experience in cybersecurity investigations and offers up virtual CISO services in his current role at BlackFog. Doug served for 26 years with the Michigan State Police, and his extensive background in law enforcement and cybersecurity investigations makes him a valuable asset to BlackFog and their customers. So please welcome me in joining Doug. And Doug, it's all yours.
All right, very good. We'll take it away. So thanks for the introduction, and thanks for everyone joining us. Hopefully more can trickle in as we're going along. The frustration of having tech issues is always great, but we'll make it worth your while for those that have joined. As Aaron said, my name is Doug Luban, Vice President Customer Success here at BlackFog. And we are a US founded, US based company. I think he gave a great intro on myself, so I won't belabor that any further. And I want to introduce one of my other teammates, my senior sales engineer, Nolan Rank. And Nolan, if you could give a quick intro of yourself, and then we'll jump right into the PowerPoint.
Absolutely.
So kind of the format, I'll give everybody the format real quick. We will do a PowerPoint presentation discussion, and I think we'll save the questions for afterwards out of respect for the time. So if anybody has any questions, let's do them afterwards. And so we'll do PowerPoint, then we're gonna do a short video, like a 2 to 3 minute video, then we'll do a live demonstration as well, show you and address really what's going on in the outside world with the bad guys and how things have really changed in the ransomware world in the last couple of years. So Nolan, I'll let you run.
Yep, perfect. Yep, thanks, Doug. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining today. My name is Nolan Rink. I'm Senior Sales Engineer here at Team BlackFog in my 3rd year with the company. So I have a little bit more technical knowledge for our product, BlackFog specifically, so really glad to be part of the webinar today. I'm sure we're going to be able to show you something very interesting in how we are preventing ransomware. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and start the PowerPoint and pass it back to Doug. So, 1 second here. Perfect. So I have just started sharing. I'm not sure, Doug, if on your side you can see that I'm sharing, but
I'm good, and I'll just have you
perfect.
do next slide. So
yep.
BlackFog, we are, like I said, US founded, US based. We're an endpoint solution. We work on basically all types of endpoints, from cell phones up to servers. We work across all the major operating systems: Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, Chrome. We will have a Linux version coming out later in the year. But I'll give you the backstory. I'm of the generation that knowing where something came from and how it was founded and why it was founded is really important. And our CEO and founder, Darren Williams, this is Darren's 3rd successful startup. His 2nd startup was acquired by another company. He and I worked there together. That's where we met about 12 years ago. And it's actually what led to the concept and the creation of BlackFog. And so the story is that as bad guys go, and cybercrime, probably about 2012-ish, maybe 2013, bad guys really stopped, changed, and they had a major change in how and what they were doing for their employment, for stealing things. They went from stealing the devices for the value of the device to stealing the devices for the value of the data. We were literally seeing, and I was on a team that we were 55 retired police officers working all across the globe. We had successful cases like in 115 countries. Most of them came with felony crimes attached to them. Like about 2/3 out of every case we had felony arrests with it. So but this dynamic happened about 2012, 2013. HIPAA had become enforceable, but more importantly, the value of a data record on the dark web had gone through the roof. We were seeing, healthcare records showing up on the dark web for $150 each. 2 or 3 lines of PII code were bringing, $5 to $10. And the bad guys, being bad guys, they really started to capitalize on it, and they started doing very focused events, breaking into, doctors' offices and only stealing the office manager and the other devices, breaking into factories, walking by literally hundreds of computers on the production line and stealing the HR managers. So the point is they really changed their focus on getting the data because it had become so valuable, where the devices had dropped tremendously in value, and there wasn't much of a black market value of stolen devices anymore. That ship had kind of sailed. Data was and still is the main thing they want. So we were talking about it one day, and Darren made the comment. He says, well, that's actually really easy to prevent. He says, all we got to do is stop the outbound flow of data. We had seen perimeter defensive had basically served its purpose. It's still, you should have it, but it had really served its point in time, and the bad guys have figured out how to get around and violate most perimeter type defensive solutions. So no one was guarding the back door, and that's what BlackFog was created for. It was to prevent the bad guys from getting out the back door with any of your data, and that's what it's termed, anti-data exfiltration, stopping them from stealing your data. Fast forward to today, what we're seeing today, and this has really ramped up over the last 3 years since COVID. The workforces were dispersed. People were going home. They were now no longer be able to be protected by their network, security protocols. And the bad guys, again, capitalize on it. They started just attacking everybody, either, at home through their, their personal emails or work emails was their goal, but to get to the data. And we've seen a significant change and an uptick. 3 years ago, about 80%, in fact, just less than 80% of all attacks involved data exfiltration. And as of last month, our current stats showed 92% of all attacks involve data exfiltration. So what that really comes down to is that over 9 out of every 10 cyber attacks involves the bad guys stealing your data. To expound on that a little bit more, what the bad guys are doing, coming in, they're attacking your network, getting into your network, stealing your data, exfiltrating it, and then maybe later on in the cycle, after they've gotten all your data, they've done some of their background work, they've gathered what they need, maybe then they will deploy an encryption attack. But the true single level encryption attack is really become a thing of the past. We don't see those very often. The multiple levels of extortion is what we're seeing now, where the bad guys take your data and then they'll extort you. They'll say, hey, we've got your data. Here's some samples that we've posted on the dark web, or that we're going to post on the dark web if you don't pay us. They ask for money every step of the way. The other things that we commonly see is they'll actually then start attacking those data set owners, your customers, your patients, your clients. And they'll send them these really nasty letters that say, hey, company XYZ really doesn't care about your security. We got your data from them. Here's a sample of it. And now we need you to pay us some money so that we don't publish your data. Some of the other layers of extortion we've all seen recently, where the bad guys have literally gone to like the Securities and Exchange Commission and other regulatory bodies and reported those companies for not having good cybersecurity and letting data leak out. So yeah, go ahead and click next slide, Nolan. We'll keep walking through this. So some stats on it to me that are really significant. Number one, BlackFog, we are the global leaders in tracking ransomware. This is all we do. We're a single source and single focus company. We do this 24/7, 365 all across the world. Last year in 23, there was 632 publicly reported attacks worldwide. US comprised 56% of them. So we've also seen a significant increase, and we see this almost on a daily basis. Our team, when we're doing internal reviews with our clients too, is that the data that's going out to China and Russia has really ticked up a lot. It continues to increase. So next slide. So again, in 2023, the exfiltration ratio was at 91%. Like I said, our last month's report for March of 2024 was 92%. So again, over 9 out of 10 of cases, the bad guys are stealing the data before they do any type of encryption or lock you out. It's your data. It's really what it comes down to, is that your data is worth the money to them. That's where they get paid, and that's all they want is your money. They don't care. The really cool thing to see is when black fog has been deployed on a device and the bad guys can't get your data, and we'll show you this in a little bit on a short little video. But when black fog is deployed, it literally stops the bad guy's original handshake back to the C2 server, so they can't even deploy their attack. They can't get any data. They have no access to your device, to your network. And it's we enjoy frustrating the bad guys, and they literally will pack up shop and move on to the next victim on their list. This slide here to me is really alarming, because we started in 2022, we started tracking how many were undisclosed. And so for the year 2023, you can see it, but there were 632 that were reported, publicly confirmed attacks. But our team has come up with the fact that there's over 4,000, so over 6 times the amount of attacks that are undisclosed or unreported attacks. That's a pretty staggering number. So next slide, Nolan. So how did we get here? We've talked about this a little bit, but some of the obvious high value targets: healthcare, education, government, finance, bankings. The bad guys have become very, very well organized and coordinated. They literally have gang structures. I saw a post this morning where one of the gangs just came back. They changed their name, which is pretty common. They'll change their name, they'll come back. One of the gangs, our team found a posting where they were showing they had a want ad out for help wanted ad for bad guys. They have access to AI, and they're using AI, to deploy their attacks. They're found to be about 80% effective at bypassing traditional antivirus solutions. And the other reason that the bad guys have success is a lot of places, they're understaffed, under-equipped, and perhaps behind the times on their cybersecurity stack or their defensive solutions. So the bottom point is, I find really interesting, in the dark web, in the underworld, there is a lot of street cred, and the bad guys have, they take advantage of it. So if they get a really big target, like say if they succeed and do the MGM attack or the United Health, or other large attacks, that's really huge for those guys street cred wise. And there's a lot of competition between the bad guys. So next slide. Talked about it just a brief minute ago, but this gives you a little bit more description of it. The top sectors that are being targeted, and this to me is staggering too, but between 2022 and 23, for all 4 of these stats, healthcare rose 134%, education rose 63%, government 54%, and finance 140%. So you can see, to me, what this picture paints is that the healthcare and finance, the bad guys really like attacking those because they know there's a better chance of getting paid money. Education, even though it's a very attractive and could be lucrative, sometimes they have a real hard time getting paid out of education and government as well. Next slide, Nolan. So who is Black Fog? We were founded in 2015. As I said before, our founder, Darren Williams, this is his 3rd successful startup. We pioneered the anti-data exfiltration, and hackers are going to get in. We stop them from getting out. We're really turning the industry on its head. It has become a very, very effective solution, and we'll continue to talk more about it as we get further in here. But we work alongside every other basically defensive solution that's out there as an extra layer, and I want to kind of highlight that. We're not telling you to get rid of your other solutions. We're telling you we work as an extra layer to stop the bad guys from getting out your back door with your data. Mm-hmm. Next slide. Cost of doing nothing. This simply is, I don't have to go into the details, but if you are ransomware attacked, the costs are kind of like the gift that keeps on giving, but it's the bad guys that keep on taking. It literally just continues to cost you time and time again. Double, triple, we've even seen quadruple extortions, obviously espionage, insider threats, nation state warfare type of disruptions, especially on our critical infrastructure. And we've seen some of them recently on the water networks, gasoline distribution. Everybody lived through that a couple years ago. Direct costs are very simple and very, in your face. Direct cost is the ransom, the business disruption, the remediation, the lawsuits, the governmental fines. Those last two things have grown in significance. The lawyers, as a general rule, have figured out that there's actually ways to now create class action lawsuits against big firms that have been breached and attacked. And the governmental fines, it's not just from one particular agency within the government. It's several different legs or arms of the government that can now impose fines on them. So next page. Fighting back. Traditional security solution focuses on defensive firewalls, antivirus, EDR, XDR, and DLP. And as I said before, the bad guys have become very, very adept at breaking those defensive solutions and getting in. The number of breaches and attacks with data exfiltration continues to rise. Again, beating the dead horse, but all they want is your data. Your data is worth a ton of money to them. So they are using all sorts of things: AI, polymorphism, phishing, and then the dwell time. Dwell time is really interesting because they'll get into your network. A lot of times they start stealing your data, but they'll steal it at a really low rate so that, a lot of your solutions won't trigger any type of alert or shutdown. It's kind of like eating an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you steal a lot of data? One bite at a time. And being in your environment, there's been some studies recently where dwell time, they're in environments now for upwards of 2 to 6 months before they actually even come out and say, hey, we're in your environment, we're going to shut you down, because they want to get your data. It's the gold, at the silver pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So next slide, Nolan, I'll let you go ahead and take it from here.
All right, perfect. So just to expand a little bit on how we do what we do and what differentiates us. So we're anti-data exfiltration, and everything that we do is focused on network traffic that is leaving your devices. So it's an endpoint solution. It's an application that goes on your laptops, desktops, mobile devices, servers, and that application monitors the outbound network traffic and checks that traffic against 30 different layers of AI engines to identify suspicious attributes of that network traffic. So we're not looking at the content of the data, whether it's a social security number or any random image of what you might consider unimportant data. We don't want anything getting in the hands of an attacker. So we're looking at the behavior, not the content. So namely, where is that information trying to go? How is it trying to get there? What processes on your system are trying to move that data? And if anything about that network traffic is suspicious, we block it immediately, and we block it automatically the moment it's trying to occur. So there's no alerts, no need for human intervention, no delay time for that protection to occur. It all happens automatically. So that way, if an attacker is trying to get data out of your environment, they're prevented from doing so as soon as they try. So they don't get any visibility into your environment. And if they can't get any of your data, they have nothing of value to use against you, and they pack up shop and leave. Similarly, we protect against insider threats. So if somebody inside of your environment is trying to send data out in an unauthorized manner, we're able to prevent them from doing so as well. If a device happens to be infected and it's trying to spread across an environment, we can prevent that as it's trying to move to the next machine in the local network. It's going to be doing so using suspicious means, trying to hide its own activities. There's many different applications, and with this approach to security, we're able to augment very successfully a lot of existing tools that have their uses. They're very powerful and very useful. But really, the key thing that we're adding is the prevention of that unauthorized data exfiltration. So let me look into this next slide. And this is a slide that just compares our technology against others, where more defensive solutions are looking at inbound traffic and trying to prevent anything from getting into your environment in the first place. We assume something is going to get through, something is going to end up in your environment. At some point, somebody may make a mistake, click on a malicious link, and download something, whatever method the attacker is trying to do to get in. Once they get in, they're unable to get the return handshake. They're unable to get any information out. And so because of where we're positioned, again, we can complement existing solutions very well. and effectively close that last gap that we're starting to see more commonly, that attackers are able to bypass and get data out of an environment. We prevent them from doing so. And this just compares from a technological point of view where we're positioned, where BlackFog is positioned at layer 3 of the OSI model, where many other solutions are up at layers 5, 6, and 7. And so depending on what stage an attack is in, we're either going to stop something first before anything is able to take place. For example, if somebody clicks on a bad link that's going to communicate out to an attacker, we stop them at that stage. As soon as they click that link, we shut down that connection so the attacker never gets any visibility. And in that case, we would stop it first at the very first stage of an attack. If it's a situation in which a device is already infected, the attackers are already dwelling in the environment before BlackFog is deployed, we deploy BlackFog. Now we're going to be catching it at the end of the attack, the last layer of defense, where anything that we see leaving that device has already gone through your existing solutions, and we're able to shut it down at the last stage. So, we have applications both as an incident response tool after the fact and as a preventative measure before the attack is able to take place. We've been recognized by many different organizations with these awards that you see on screen. And Doug, I'm not sure if there was anything specific you wanted to speak to on these.
No, I mean, our awards continue. We've got some more that are actually coming in, and so we're really proud of them because we have been recognized. As you see, these are all 2022, 23, 24's awards. And, it's not listed here, but the other endpoint solutions that are in the same categories that we actually won gold over is very impressive. So really proud of where the company has come. So I'm a real big believer in the KISS theory, keep it simple. And in its simplest form, the bad guys want your data. BlackFog stops them from getting your data. That's truly in its simplest form. And in today's world, you really need to defend against data exfiltration because of the damage they can do with your data once they get it. So, I think maybe we could grab a couple quick questions before or do you want to jump? Let's jump into the video. I think time-wise, we're better off with that. So we'll jump into a quick video. Nolan's going to show you a video of BlackFog in action. And if everybody could table their questions, and then we look forward to the Q&A session at the end.
Absolutely. Yep. So this is just going to be an example showing BlackFog before and after in an attack scenario. So if I'm an attacker and I want to steal some of your data, I don't want to do any more work than I have to. As an attacker, the more I can get for the less amount of work, that's good for me. So with these new generative AI tools coming to light, like ChatGPT, Google's Gemini, etc., it makes it easy for an attacker to do this. So if I ask ChatGPT to give me a data exfiltration attack, it's not going to do it. It's going to tell me that is illegal, to please not do anything illegal using ChatGPT. But if I'm very creative, I can get ChatGPT to give me code that essentially does exactly what I was asking for, a data exfiltration attack. You can see if I'm very specific, it is possible to get ChatGPT to print out code that I can then incorporate into an attack. So this is a script that looks through a file system, finds new files, and sends them off to a destination that I can then specify. And it gave me the code that time. So the barrier to entry to being a cyber criminal is very low right now. And as AI tools get more advanced, it's just going to become easier and easier to create new methods of attacks, which is why it's very important not to rely on static lists for your protection of known threats, but having something that can identify suspicious activity that's unknown and protect you against those kind of unknowns, zero-day attacks, never before seen threats, which is what we do. So going into the attack scenario, on the left side, we have the attacker's computer. On the right side, we have the target. This target does not have BlackFog installed, but they have been infected by this attack. This attacker is dwelling in the environment, slowly transferring information out. Now, for the sake of the example, the data that's being transferred are images of my dog, but this could be anything, like I said, whether it's sensitive information, social security numbers, or just images that happen to be on a device. We don't want any data getting in the hands of the attacker. We don't want them to be able to see any of your stuff. But as you can see on the target machine, this user could be using their computer for weeks or even months, all the while not knowing that there's information being transferred off and getting in the hands of an attacker. And on the attacker side, You can see there's a steady inflow of data. They have done effectively everything right. Their attack has worked. But now if we introduce BlackFog into this environment and we go through the BlackFog software installation, it's very quick to deploy and it's very low overhead in terms of management. So once you get this installed, there's not a lot of configuration, not a lot of training needed. It's really a set it and forget it type solution that can be deployed very quickly and greatly reduce your risk. So we can see here things are getting installed. After just a few seconds, we click finish on the installer. And as soon as BlackFog comes up, that protection turns on. You see that notification, threat detection, and identified that unauthorized data exfiltration happening in the background, blocked it immediately and blocked it automatically. So on the attacker's side, this attacker has 18 files, but no more data is coming through for them. And you see that notification again, threat detection, because this target is still infected by this attack. It's still trying to send data back to the attacker. But every time it tries, it goes through BlackFog's protection. We identify it as suspicious. We block it automatically. And on the attacker's side, no more data is coming through. They don't know that it's because of BlackFog that their attack stopped working. So they could either go back to ChatGPT, try to generate another variation of the attack and get it working again, or what's much more likely that they'll do is move to the next target on their list because they had a process that was working. And like I said at the beginning, an attacker's not going to want to do any more work than they have to. And if they can use the same system on somebody else and get it working there, that's what they're going to do. And that's what we see very commonly, where we have a very high volume of blockings in an environment for a few days, and then it drops way off because the attacker who is trying to get in was unable to, and they move on, leaving this target and leaving you safe at that point from the attacker. So hopefully that gives a little bit of visibility into how we operate, where we're deployed, and what exactly we do and how we're protecting you from unauthorized data exfiltration. So at this point, we'd love to, I think, open up the conversation for questions. And we do have one more demonstration that Doug will be able to share. But before we get into that, maybe I think it could be good to address any key questions off the bat.
Yeah, wide open format here, folks. Ask away. All right. Any of them? Any questions coming in, Aaron, Dan?
No, I haven't seen anything hit Q&A or chat at this point.
All right, very good. So, I do want to show one other functionality of BlackFog, and it is. It's
hold on, Doug.
Yeah.
Brad's got a question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me see if I can take him off mute. Hold on one sec. Hey, Brad, go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question. Or Brad, if you want, you can actually just drop the question in Q&A if you don't have access to your mic right now. We've got one other one in there. It says, what steps should organizations take to ensure their employees are aware of and trained to prevent data exfiltration?
Great question. And we're finding that it's being rolled into most cybersecurity training programs these days. The main thing is to continue your employee education so that they know. I mean, BlackFog is a fail-safe where if they click on a bad link or something, and the bad guys honestly are getting so good with their phishing attacks and their other attacks that it is getting harder and harder to spot them. We see them every day. But the really interesting thing that we see and we find a lot is that a lot of these attacks actually come in without people even knowing about it. They come in on a backdoor type channel where you're just literally visiting. I'll give you a good example. 2 weeks ago, a client in the here in the upper Northeast manufacturing firm. They only run one shift a day, but long story short, we're doing a review with their MSP that actually runs Black Fog for them. And one of their devices at about 3:20 in the morning started just getting hammered with attacks. And Nolan, I can't remember where it was from, but I know it was a foreign country. Was it Russia or China? I don't remember, but it was a pretty significant number of attacks. And they were really persistent because they attacked from 3:26 in the morning until about 5:30 at night. And I think there was about 10,000 attacks during that time frame. Black Fog stopped every single one of them. But what was really keen to note was that there was absolutely no one at that factory, at that firm, at 3:26 in the morning. That device, all the traffic was just backdoor traffic coming in through channels that were left open. And the bad guys were trying to exfiltrate data, but thankfully they had Black Fog deployed and it was stopping them. And that's something we see a lot. I mean, we see a lot of attacks coming in through really common channels. Facebook has a lot of back channels, pretty much everything. Most websites have back channel traffic that Black Fog is really, really good at stopping as well. LinkedIn, we saw a real uptick of LinkedIn attacks. And most of us think LinkedIn is a really good professional network, which it is. But the bad guys started to capitalize on it. They said, hey, that's a really great source for information and to gain access to people's devices. And so they started using LinkedIn as an attack vector. So was Brad able to drop his question? Otherwise, I'll jump to the next.
No, I'm actually, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, Nolan, Doug, how you guys doing today?
Good,
Well,
thank
how are
you,
you,
Brad.
Good. Yeah, my question was just so after installing Black Fog on your machine, I know I've looked into like the pausing feature where you guys have explained to me where you can pause the service. But if you pause that service, is there anything open there for any hacking to be involved after pausing the service for so long, or is there something in the back end that still doesn't let the hacker get into the machine?
Right. So what you're referring to is with Black Fog, with the nature of automatic protection is that in order to prevent any false positives, we have two functions. There's training mode where we will monitor an environment but not block anything at first. That way, if we're identifying anything as suspicious, that's a critical business process, we can enable it. We can add an exception for it before turning on that full protection. We give you the most robust protection possible without interrupting any critical business processes or interrupting your work. And then the second one is installation mode, where we can temporarily suspend the protection from Black Fog in the instance where you have to deploy another software or if there's any conflicts happening, again, just to make sure everything's running smoothly. And I think to speak to your question, Brad, that when we suspend our protection, it is wholly suspended. It's, we want to operate quickly, suspend it, do whatever we need to do and get the protection back running again. Because as long as our protection is suspended, you're not getting that full anti-data exfiltration protection. So definitely recommend no more than 15 minutes. If you do have to pause the protection, not to do so for very long.
Yeah, we have it. Two quick points. Good question, Brad. But 2 quick points is if you suspend and put it in install mode, number one, it automatically turns back on so that in the event somebody forgets to go back and turn it on, that doesn't exist. That does not apply. The solution automatically regenerates and turns itself back on after the selected time frame. But the other key thing is that, let's say you're in an environment of several hundred devices. You're only suspending the service for one device. It's the suspension is done at the agent level for that individual device. So the rest of your environment is completely protected while you're doing whatever you have to do. So, and Nolan did touch on a good thing, the training mode. We've been partnered with the team at Watchdog for some time now. And one of the normal processes is say if your agency or your company wants to come on with Black Fog, normally that's the protocol. We put it in training mode, usually for about a week, get to learn your environment, see what's going on, if there are any things that need to be, allow listed or, adjustments made. It's very easy. And the team at Watchdog would be able to help you with that. After the first week, usually you're able to go back out into full production mode and enjoy the full benefits and protection of Black Fog. So back to that first question the person asked, and I don't know who it was, but I hopefully that answered your question as far as the training with data exfiltration. So,
All right, we have one more, Doug.
okay.
How do insider threats contribute to the risk of data exfiltration, and how can they be mitigated?
Repeat that, Aaron.
How do insider threats contribute to the risk of data exfiltration, and how can they be mitigated?
Okay, good question. So number one, insider threats on data exfiltration. The typical scenario that we see is one of two things. It's either a plant at a competitor, where they've sent an employee to hire in and get, trade secrets, intellectual property, things like that. Or it's an employee that's disgruntled and they know they're going to be leaving, and they start sending out, customer lists, intellectual property. The list is endless what they're going to start stealing. But BlackFog has the ability to detect any abnormal behaviors of, within their network, within their agent, and stop the data exfiltration where, so they can't do it, pure and simple. They're not going to be able to get it out.
Great. Thanks. That it looks like that's it for now.
Okay. All right. I do want to show you one more functionality of BlackFog. So I will take tell me when you guys can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. I don't see it.
Well, I apologize for that.
We can see you, Doug. We just can't see your screen. So we're seeing something, but just you.
Yeah. No, and I'm trying to get it to draw where I want it to go without showing the whole webinar base. So all right, tell me when you can see that.
Yep, we can see it.
All right. All right. So
we're seeing Teams right now.
Okay. And I don't know how to hide that. So so what I'm showing here, this is our agent, my agent on my device, and I'm going to zero it out. So the agent, there's a couple things I want to show you in here. So I just zeroed it out.
Real quick, Doug, sorry to interrupt, but we can't see the agent. We're only seeing your browser.
You're not seeing my agent then. Well, son of a gun. Well, I have to apologize. I can't get it to pop up properly. So
no worries, all good. Just to speak to what Doug was going to show, because of the nature of our protection, and this isn't a front and center feature, but it's kind of a bonus functionality, is we're a great ad blocking and profiling blocking tool. So regardless of what web browser you're using and what you're doing, you don't need to add an ad blocking extension or anything like that. Anything that's leaving your device that requests go out to those advertising services, to profiling services, data scraping, things like that are blocked by BlackFog. So even if if part of your job is going to many different websites across the internet, news websites, forum websites, research, whatever it is you do, where there would be banner ads, those are blocked by BlackFog. So you just see a gray box where that ad wants to be, but we did not allow the request for that ad to populate to leave your device. So those profiling services, those advertising services, they never get your information, they never get your IP address, and you end up with a much cleaner, faster, and more secure browsing experience just from us blocking all of that junk connectivity happening in the background. And that's what Doug was going to demonstrate by going to a few news websites and just showing what's being blocked. And we can show you exactly what tried to occur, what connections were blocked. And typically in a full day of work, it can get up into the hundreds or even thousands of advertising and profiling connections being blocked by BlackFog that you would never know were occurring in the background, but can often be an early stage starting point for attacks where attackers will buy information from those profiling services, put together their target lists, put together business email compromises. And from blocking that, we're able to stop attacks at a very early stage.
Yep, that's a real early stage. On the dark web, there are people that's all they do is use these ad profilers and web advertising tools to grab your information, and then they start building little profiles on you. They'll find out that you have 3 kids, you live in, Flushing, Michigan, you like Model A Fords, your kids play soccer. They try and build a packet that then allows an attacker to custom, attack you with things that you like and things that you're accustomed to. And, so the data access brokers on the dark web is a very real and viable, career. It may sound crazy that here as a retired police officer, I'm talking about careers on the dark web, but that's what it is. And each step along the way. So the access brokers are usually one of the first steps. They put together a packet of, 100, so they'll even sell them. They say 100 with, 6 points of ID. They have all sorts of other dark web phraseologies, but point is they know how to sell it. So they'll sell that 100 packet for, it's surprisingly and shockingly very, very cheap. And so other bad guys who want to do attacks, they'll go there. That's where they get their information because they like to do the attacks. They don't want to do all the mundane work on the back end. So then you have access brokers, you have people that do the attacks. Then after the attack, you have people who will negotiate ransomware, negotiate settlements. So each step along the way, and this takes me back to I was in organized crime, political corruption for several years. And, the old, mafia and mob, that's what I worked for several years. And the old 10% rule, it really does apply in the dark web too. The bad guys, each step along the way, they're probably going to say, I want 5 points, I want 10 points. People that do the attacks, they're a little bit more greedy. They want more of the pot. But the point is, each step along the way, they share the money. And that's, you're on the outside world looking in, that may sound really crazy, but it's the reality of today. And with the dark web, they, that's how they function. And to them, again, your data is the money they want, pure and simple. Mm-hmm. So do we have any, I will say in closing, do we have any other comments or questions? And I guess I'll close with this too. If you have other questions or you're interested in learning more about BlackFog, obviously get with Aaron and Dan at Watchdog Security, and they will gladly, explain it to you and set you up with some intro calls and then proof of value, things like that. So we would love to talk further with any of you.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Thanks, Nolan. I appreciate the time today, and I want to thank everybody who stayed on, and thank you for your patience and the little hiccup that we had early on with the link being messed up, and definitely appreciate it. So yeah, like Doug said, if you've got any questions or you want to see a little more about this product, feel free to reach out to either myself or Dan. We're more than happy to set up a call and discuss it a little bit further and discuss how we can start protecting your data and really people's lives, right? This data that gets breached can turn into identity theft and can really really affect people.
Yep. For those that are on, it's really scary when you talk to someone that's been a victim of a ransom attack. It's life altering. And most common things they say is they can't sleep. It is truly, it becomes personal because they feel like, well, then they're being attacked, but they're being attacked by such an unknown, and it's their livelihood, it's their business that's at risk. So, all right. Well, thank you all. I appreciate it.
I'm just going to check the Q&A section one more time before we close.
Okay.
And I am seeing none. So again, thank you everybody for joining, and we will see you all soon.
All right. Bye.
Thanks,
all.
Doug.